All right, welcome everybody to DES 105, Page Layout Tools. I am your graphic arts instructor, Shannon McNamara. I'm just going to turn on my camera real quick so I can say hello to everyone. All right, hello. So I'm excited to teach this course. I always like teaching this course. I have been using InDesign since basically the beta version of it. Before I used InDesign, I worked in a program called Quark Express, and I've been doing graphic design for a little bit over 20 years at this point. And when Adobe launched InDesign, I was one of the first people who got to test it at the place that I was working in. And it was really cool because I kind of got in on the ground floor and learned a lot about the program and was able to give my bosses my take on it. And I liked it right from the get-go. And I said, you know what, we need to stop using Quark and let's start using InDesign. I think everything's going to work so much better because, it works so well with Illustrator and it works so well with Photoshop. So I think we should do it. And going forward the next year we did. And we haven't gone back to Quark, and nobody's gone back to Quark ever since. So it's really a great program, and there is a lot to learn with it. I'm not going to lie. So what I want to tell you right away is during the live sessions, what I like to do is I like to do a presentation of, either the assignment or something that's similar to the assignment that kind of has the same tools that are being used and the same idea behind it, but without actually showing you the exact assignment. And that's because I feel if you watch me design something and see how I present it and put it on the screen, it's kind of hard to unsee that, to come up with your own designs, especially for week one. So I do want to let you know that you need to make sure that you are watching the videos that go along with the live reading, the readings and videos portion in the course, and it'll show you exactly where those are located. Those videos and those readings are really going to fill in the gaps between what I do during the live session, because a lot of what I'm showing you during the live session is more of a demo. This is how we draw the text box, and here's me, designing something along with you. But to really get into the nitty-gritty of the tools and what each of the tools do, it's a lot. So those videos are really going to be instrumental in showing you that information. Also, make sure that you are reading the announcements in the course, because I share a lot of different links that should help you out, especially links that you can find on Adobe and, how to set up your InDesign so that way your pages are set up with inches instead of picas, which is where it defaults to, and it can be a little bit confusing working in picas. I can't stand working in picas, and I think most of us think in terms of, inches and measurements that way. So I think that will help. So just make sure that you're really, watching the live session videos. Make sure that you are watching the videos for the course. Make sure you're reading things for the course, and we'll go over all of this where everything is located. All right, so I'm going to turn off my camera for now, and I do apologize. I have horrible allergies, and today is just one of those days where no matter what I do, I sound stuffed up. So I do apologize for how I sound, and we'll get right into it today. All right, so again, my name is Shannon McNamara, and my telephone hours are Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. Mountain Time to 4 p.m. Mountain Time, but you can email me anytime, and honestly, email is one of the best ways to get in touch with me. I have email on my phone, I have email on my iPad, I have email on my computer. I feel like I'm constantly connected. But I do also work for another school, and I do have another job. So I'm not always able to answer the phone, but I am able to, send a quick response as long as, I have the time to do so, and I tend to get right back to people via email. So you can email me anytime. Just be aware, though, that I am located in Eastern Standard Time. I live up in Massachusetts. So just be aware of the time zone change when you are trying to reach me. If you are in Mountain Time or, Pacific on the West Coast and you're emailing me at 9 o'clock your time, it's about midnight here, and I am an early to bed, early to rise person. So chances are good that you will end up, not getting a response from me until early the next morning. So just kind of keep that aware when you are trying to get in touch with me. All right, let's take a look at our agenda for tonight. So we'll go over some welcome and introductions. We'll go over some announcements. We'll take a look at our course. We will go over the discussion question for this week, and also we'll do an intro to InDesign, and we will discuss the assignment and the assessment. So we have a lot on our agenda for this evening. All right, so in our course, there is an introduce yourself discussion. And it doesn't show up, in one of these tabs. You'll notice down at the bottom how you have week 1 discussion, assignment, assessment, the same thing for week 2, week 3. And then during week 4, you add that career integration quiz in. So if you want to get to the introduce yourself discussion, you need to click on the week 1 overview, and it will be in there. And just scroll on down to week 1 introductions, and there's a little prompt for you to follow. But if you're kind of confused and you don't really know what to put in there, I have a little slide for you of just some ideas that you can do in your introductory post. Your name, maybe where you're located, what your major is, what different experiences you might have with the different graphic arts applications, and what your career goals may be. I think it's super important for you guys to kind of develop a rapport with each other, especially in the introduction area at the beginning of each mod. You'll notice as you go through the program that you're going to start to see some of the same faces over and over again, or at least some of the same names in the different discussion posts. And it's kind of cool to feel like you're going to class with the same people, even though you guys don't physically come to a classroom. I finished up my degree online, and it tended to get a little bit lonely. But I noticed as I went through my program, I went to a different school, but as I went through my program, after maybe the 3rd or 4th semester, I started noticing the same names over and over again. So when I was in my discussion posts each week and in the introduce yourself portion, I always made sure, to say hey to that person. Hey Dave, we have a class again together. It's so cool, to see you here, even though you never really saw Dave. Things like that. So it really is cool. And I've had a couple of students who have started Facebook groups, and they get together a couple of times a mod, and they, kind of bounce ideas off each other, and they, show each other their work and give each other critiques before they submit things. And they said it made, going to school online, it felt less online, and they felt more like they were in a classroom with their friends. And they said, it was great because they had somebody to bounce ideas off of and somebody to look over their stuff before they submitted it. And they made some great friendships that way. And I believe this group that I'm talking about actually graduated last year, and they were telling me that their plan is that they were from all over the country, and they were all going to try to get together somewhere centrally so they could all meet up in person. And I was like, that's really, really cool that you guys are going to do that. So I don't know if they did, but I have to find out some way, because I always tell the story about how, their virtual friendship turned into a real friendship. And I always think that that's so awesome. So if you're not quite sure, what to put in that introductory post, I have a slide here that you can follow. And I do share my slides in the announcements after the live session when I post the live session videos. You can get the videos in the live session tab, but you can also find them in the announcements, and I will always share my slideshow with you guys in the announcements. So if there's something that you want to go back and reread, it's there for you. So these are our course objectives. Upon successful completion of this course, you should be able to discuss the ways InDesign is implemented by graphic design professionals, so basically how to use it, utilize panels, tools, and frames to create documents in InDesign, appropriately apply paragraph and character style sheets, implement correct usage of master pages, properly package an InDesign document for digital output and print production. I think that packaging the InDesign document is probably one of the most important steps that you need to master, and it's actually really easy, and we will go over tonight. It's just one little step that you need to do. Apply the basic principles and elements of design within an InDesign layout. So due dates in the course. All assignments and assessments are due by the Saturday of the week for full credit. When I have bad allergies, I apparently can't speak and I say words really incorrectly. Communication regarding late work is key in this course. This will save you missed points. If something comes up, please let me know. I feel as though I am extremely easy to work with. I just need to know what's going on. I need you to give me a heads up. Think of me as your client, and the work that you are doing each week, I'm paying you for. So if you are going to be paid for a job and it was going to be late, you would want to let your client know that, hey, you know what, my deadline I gave you was Saturday, and I don't think I'm going to be able to meet my deadline, because you want to make sure that you're going to get paid, and that, you know, your client isn't going to think that you just left and you're not going to do the work for them. So I think if you don't think of me as an instructor, but think of me as your client when it comes to turning in your work, you'll remember that you need to communicate with me that way. Also, I will say this every single week. Your week 4 assignments cannot be turned in late. The course will turn into a pumpkin. It will lock you out. It will not let you upload those assignments. I will also say this every single week. If that happens to you, you know, you're in the middle of uploading and it's week 4, it can't be turned in late, and the clock struck midnight and it bumped you out, what I will need you to do is immediately email me your file for that week 4 assignment, because I go into grade early in the morning on Sundays, and if I don't see your work, especially for week 4, I will just assume that you have not submitted it. Also, we have a discussion post due each week, and your original post is due by Wednesday at midnight, and you need to respond to 2 of your fellow students by Saturday and post on at least 2 different days. Here's another big one. Late discussion posts will not be accepted past the Saturday deadline for the week. So if you do not get in at least part of your week 1 discussion by Saturday, and we're going into week 2, if you submit it on Sunday, it will not be graded. I am extremely adamant about that deadline, because we've all moved on, and part of the discussion is to have a group discussion with your fellow students and to develop an understanding of the topic and to discuss it together. And if nobody else is in the discussion, you're just discussing it with yourself and you're not meeting that requirement. All right. I think I might have one more slide. Here we go. All right. And then when it comes to those discussion posts, what's a substantive post? That substantive post consists of at least 150 words and at least 1 APA formatted citation. The resources are in the classroom, so go to your course information, general guidelines, and writing style requirements. Also, again, with those assignments and assessments, they're due on Saturday. If something occurs to prevent this from happening, contact me via email, via phone, via text before the project is due. If it's late at night, please do not text me because I keep my phone on my bedside table. And we can make arrangements. Again, I am always willing to work with you. After the deadline is just that. It's after the deadline. So your work will be penalized for being late. All right, and again, succeeding in this course, because really that's what we all want to do when we take a course. We want to succeed in it, we want to learn what we need to learn, and we want to hurry up and get our degrees so we can, get out into the field to do this. So here's how to succeed in my classes. Number one, read the announcements. The announcements contain pertinent information pertaining to this class, including links, reminders, scheduling. This is how I communicate with you, is through those announcements. Make sure that you participate in the discussion each week. Make sure that you are completing your assignments on time. Also, make sure you're doing your daily checkpoints. I have seen people lose an entire letter grade because they weren't doing their daily checkpoints, and it brought down their grade by an entire letter grade. Also, if you can, and I understand people do have other obligations, but if you can, make sure that you attend the live sessions, and if you can't attend live, make sure that you watch them. Because I'm going to be demonstrating, how to do your assignments each week. Come to the multi-session if you need help. And again, make sure that you are communicating with me. So our course schedule, those live sessions are Mondays from 4 to 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and the multi-sessions are Tuesdays from 4 to 6 p.m. Mountain Time. The multi-sessions are open for you to come in with assignment problems, questions, or if you need some one-on-one tutoring. This gives you ample time during the week to get those assignments done. If you do need any outside help, the Student Success Center is open with tutoring available and no appointment is necessary. Also, when it comes to assignment and assessments, I not only accept, but I do encourage you to resubmit your projects. I allow one resubmission per project. Utilize the critique that I give you to make your work better and better. You are allowed one resubmission of each. And here are the best ways to get a hold of me: via phone or text, also email, or again, you can message me right through Canvas. So any questions before we jump in with both feet? And I'm just going to mute myself really quick so I can blow my nose, so hopefully you can hear me a little better. All right, great. Then we shall move on. All right, so our week one learning objectives. This week we're going to learn some basic InDesign tools and terms. We're going to define how InDesign is used in the field and describe 5 scenarios of when it would be used. You're going to identify and match 10 basic tools to the description of their use, and identify and match 5 InDesign panels to their functions. We're going to create a new document in InDesign and insert some text frames and some images, and we're going to describe the difference between InDesign's rectangle tool and the rectangle frame tool. And I'm going to give you a spoiler alert, there's really not much of a difference, but there's a little bit of a difference, so we will go over it. It's kind of funny. When people work in the program, they kind of use both almost simultaneously and interchangeably. And, when I was coming in to teach this class, the very first time that I taught it, there was a note, like, make sure you go over the difference in the 2 rectangle tools. And I was like, you know what? I know that there is a difference, but is there really a difference? They both function kind of the same. So I did a quick Google search, and it really cracked me up, because one of the very first hits that came up on the Google search that I did, because I wanted to have a good answer for you guys, was Hi, I'm teaching an InDesign class and a question came up that I've never thought to answer before. What is the difference between the rectangle tool and the rectangle frame tool? And then it was all of these different designers who were basically like, giving these bizarre answers, and they were like, why do you need to know that? And I kind of just had a good laugh to myself, and I was like, oh, us designers, we just use things sometimes. But we will go over that. We're also going to utilize the rectangle, oval, and line tools to create a composition in InDesign. You'll utilize InDesign's character panel to apply changes to fonts, the font size, kerning, tracking, and leading. You'll illustrate how to utilize the color palette within InDesign and prepare an InDesign document for print output using the package tool. You will show correct image resizing and cropping methods within InDesign. And then we'll also go over our discussion. So before we do that, let's hop over into the course again. I'm going to go back to the home page and just go over where some things are. So again, I will be posting the live sessions in this live session tab and then also in the announcements. So I want to go over the announcements real quick that I have up here. And okay, that's weird. They changed, Canvas had an update like 2 weeks ago, and you'll notice there's this media gallery and my media, and I tried to upload some stuff for you guys, and it was like, we're having an issue, and it wouldn't let me upload. So that's interesting. And apparently if you go to page 1, it says that there's no announcements, check back later. They are on page 2. There are definitely announcements. I don't know why it is set up this way. You can go to unread now. You can go to all. I think it's, meant to be helpful, and it's really just not. It's a little bit more confusing. So, and apparently has a bad lag. There we go. All right. So these are your announcements. If you need to visit the tutoring center, please do. If you need a little bit more help in your course or an extra set of eyes on your design, make sure that you're visiting the Student Success Center, and you can get to it by following the link below. Also, you can join the new IU Graphic Arts Facebook community. So that's pretty cool, and I highly suggest that you do that because you can talk to, like I said, talk to other students. There's a link on ProQuest, the applications that are required for this course, my welcome. Also, all of the different multi-sessions for Mod 4 are located within this announcement. There's a PDF in there that you can download, and it will show you when all of the different multi-sessions are. So if you can't make it to my multi-session, that's okay. I'm over here on Tuesday at 4 p.m. All you need to do is just follow the name with the link to the Zoom room and when it is. So Christina has on her Zoom room Wednesday from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. And then from 6 to 8 p.m. Shell is available at 3. Carly is available at 5 on Tuesdays, 5 p.m. Tara is available at 4 p.m. on Wednesdays. Carly is also available at 5 on Thursdays. Jason is available at 12:30 on Thursdays. Again, I'm available at 4. Julie Luke is available from 9 to 1 on Tuesdays. Pia is available at 4 p.m. on Thursdays, and then April is available at 4:30 p.m. on Wednesdays. And then if you need Adobe help, you can see Sean or James. Both of them have hours on Friday. Sean is from 10 to 12 Mountain Time, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. And then James is Thursday and Friday from 12 to 5 p.m. So if you're running into some problems with your, InDesign or something, you can log in, to their Zoom room and get some Adobe help, which is great. So again, that's located in the announcements. Apparently this image is missing. I'll see if I can fix that for them. I might not be able to. Also, our learning coach for this mod is DJ. I love working with DJ. I think she's awesome. She has hours this week, tonight from 4 to 7 p.m., all Mountain Time, by the way. Wednesday from 7 to 11 p.m., Friday from 6 to 11 p.m., and Saturday from 4 to 10 p.m. So some great hours, especially if you need some extra help with the assignment for week 1. I have a little link to help you with citing those sources in APA format. I have 2 links, one for Android, one for Apple, so you can download the Canvas app and put it on your smartphone. So that way, if you're not home, you can access the course. You can get into it and do your daily checkpoints. You can send me a message. You can get into the discussion posts. I have used it in the past because as instructors, we're required to be in the discussion post for a certain number of days, and I had an emergency and had to leave the house very early one morning, which is a day that I normally post in the discussion, and I was just sitting there, and I live and die by the reminders on my phone, and the reminder popped up to tell me to post my discussion, and I was like, oh no, I didn't bring my computer with me because I was not expecting to leave the house, so I hopped right onto the Canvas app, and I also keep everything in my life on Dropbox. So I was able to access Dropbox right from my phone, open up the doc file right on my phone, copy and paste it right in, and put it into the discussion post in the Canvas app. And I was like, well, thank goodness for technology, right? So it was definitely the the best thing to put on my phone. And then this is important too. I'm actually going to play this for you guys, but you should definitely watch this. I made a quick video a couple of mods ago on how to change your InDesign settings to default to inches, because it defaults to picas, and I don't know about you, but I cannot design in picas. My brain just does not work that way. So I figured out how to set that default. So here you go. Hi everyone, I have a quick little InDesign tip for you. I know that when I am creating things in InDesign, it's really annoying if my rulers do not default to the inches setting. So I want to show you how to set that up. Now, if you have any sort of document open, you are going to need to save it and close out of it because we need to be at the blank welcome screen. Then what you're going to do is go up into InDesign CC, into your preferences, and go down to units and increments. Right over here where it says ruler units, you want to change your horizontal and vertical to both say inches and then press OK. When you create a new document, what it will do is remember those settings for all of your new documents. So you won't have to go in and manually change all of your rulers in each document to be inches. Hope this is helpful. All right, so you guys can follow those steps, and I'll show it to you again when we get into InDesign. It's just one of those things where once you are actually in the program, you can manually change the document you are in, but if you don't set it as a default, you have to change it for every single document, and it's such a pain. So I think it's so much easier to just kind of set your default as inches. All right, again, I've given you a link for some InDesign help, and if you do need some extra help from the Writing Center, there is also a flyer in here. So those are the announcements that I've posted, and I do post a lot of announcements, but I feel like I have so much information that I'm trying to help you out with and just give you some links that you can at least hold on to. Once you leave my class, you might find that you run into a problem and you're like, wait a minute, that crazy lady who gave all those announcements, I know she was talking about this. I put all of my links that I seem to use all the time. I make folders for my bookmarks, and I try to put them in there. All of my different training videos for the two different schools. I put all of my places to find fonts, places to find stock art, places for tech things that I do, you know, fun links, web stuff. I try to set up everything. I try to be extremely organized, and I'm actually going to go over some organization tips with you too this evening. All right, so again, if you do need some extra help, make sure that you are going to Shark. From Shark, you can get to the Student Success Center, and there are login instructions, which you can click on this link and learn how to log in and find your learning coach. Again, our learning coach is DJ. So just kind of follow the instructions, and then what you will do is then log in, click here to enter the Student Success Center. So again, you need to follow those instructions if you've never done this before to then log into the Student Success Center. You can also access the Student Success Center right from this link. And then these are those readings and videos that I was telling you about. So make sure that you go in and, you know, each week there is required viewing. So we have a what is InDesign, basic tools overview, creating a new document, adding text and art, applying color to an object, how to draw in InDesign, selecting objects, and then packaging the files. And then there's also a getting started, lynda.com. So make sure that you are watching all of those videos, because those videos are going to fill in the blanks of everything that I do here tonight. And it's gonna, you know, I only have 2 hours with you each week to go over the discussion, go over the assignment, go over the assessment, and try to teach you a little bit of design as well. So these videos are really going to fill in the blanks for, you know, how to use the application. So that way I can teach you a little bit more about, you know, how to design effectively, how to really make the most of the program. Also, so there are videos and readings for each week, and your quiz from this week, that information is going to come from these videos. So just a little heads up. And then if you are looking to get in touch with me, my bio is located right here, which also has my email, my cell phone number, my telephone hours, and, you know, a little note about me. All right, so let's look at what we are doing for week 1. Again, we went over our overview. We do have that introduction and a week 1 discussion. We're going to be talking about InDesign in the field. So let's go over this. The background for our discussion post this week: graphic design is a very diverse field, and the use of InDesign as a tool within it is just as diverse. As our means of communication changes and diversifies, our software and technology work hard to keep up with current trends and changes, and InDesign is no exception. One of the things that can be most confusing for a new designer is which software to use for each project. In the same way, one of the most frustrating things for our vendors is receiving files that are in the wrong format. So for example, a newsletter layout in Illustrator or a logo in Photoshop, which are both industry standard no-nos. How is InDesign used? Specifically, InDesign's purpose is to give a platform to lay out printed or print-like material. It was designed to create a harmonious marriage between text and images. This might include, but is not limited to, brochures, newsletters, ads, business cards, books, and more. InDesign allows us to take the graphics that we create in Photoshop and Illustrator and then combine them to work easy with text. So for this discussion, you need to look at InDesign and how it's used in the field today. So in the field means, you know, if you're a graphic designer, working at an agency, working anywhere really, you might try a job website such as monster.com, or consider checking a few others like Indeed. I think Indeed.com and the navigation of Indeed is a lot easier to use when you're trying to find, you know, jobs that require InDesign. I personally would use Indeed.com. I think you're just gonna kind of have less junk that you need to sift through. You can also check out the Art Career Project or any job listing resource that you know of. But again, I definitely suggest Indeed.com. You're going to use InDesign as a keyword for your search. So instead of searching for graphic designer or graphic design, you're going to put InDesign into that keyword search. And then you're going to take note of the different job titles and descriptions that come up in your area. Or, if nothing comes up in your area, try to broaden your search even to your whole state or, what have you. Or you can also put in to the area, the location, instead of a physical location. You can actually type in remote and see if any jobs that are work from home come up. That's a little tip if you're looking for work to work from home, using remote as your location. So are any of the listings something that you might be interested in? Why or why not? In your post, you can write about one of the positions you found and list the job duties that require InDesign knowledge as a skill. List ideas of how you will become a power InDesign user so that you can be hired. That means a person who really knows the program. For example, to become a power InDesign user, I will learn one InDesign shortcut a day. Discuss why you feel your methods will be successful. Now, you need to have an APA cited source. So for your citation, you might, look up some articles that show examples of how InDesign is being used in the field today, and then relate that back to how you plan on using InDesign out in the field. Your initial and reply post should work to develop a group understanding of this topic. So challenge each other, build on each other, always be respectful, but discuss this and figure it out together. So per those requirements, you need to submit one main post of 150 plus words with one APA cited source and reference, as well as 2 follow-up posts that are at least 50 words. Your responses can be addressed to both your initial thread and other threads, but they need to be in your own words, so no copying and pasting from the web. Each reply should be unique, so no repeating the same thing that you already said to 2 different people. And it should be substantial in nature. So really get into what it was that you're commenting on in the post. Don't just say something like, I really like what you said, I thought it was cool. That's not really substantive. Remember that part of the discussion grade is submitting it on time and using proper grammar and spelling. And there we go. We also have, like I said, we have a week 1 assignment, which I'm going to go over in a little bit more depth, but we also have a week 1 assessment, which is a quiz. So I'm going to hop right over to that assessment, and we're going to go over the objectives. I'm not going to show you the quiz, but I do want to point out a couple of things. It's worth 50 points. There are 11 questions. Your time limit is none. So you can take as long as you need to with this quiz. So if you run into a question and you're not 100% sure, open up a new browser window and take the time to look it up to make sure that you get it right. Don't just fly through the quiz and then get everything wrong. Really take the time and make sure that you've got those answers correct. So you're going to need to identify and match 10 basic tools to the description of their use. Identify and match 5 InDesign panels to their functions. Describe the difference between InDesign's rectangle tool and the rectangle frame tool. And also create a new document in InDesign and insert text frames and images. So you don't have to do that in the quiz. It's just going to kind of ask you some questions on how you would do that. All right. So again, just be careful and read each of the questions. And also to help discourage cheating, some questions will seem like others that other students might have had, but the values have changed and what is being asked for has changed. So I have ultimate faith in you guys that there will be no cheating. Whoops. And you know what? If you finish up your stuff early this week, look ahead. Kind of go through the course tonight and see what it is that we're going to be doing. It's always good to look ahead and, have yourself prepared for what we're going to be doing each week and in the future, just so that way, you have an idea of how this is all going to end up working together. All right, so we went over our discussion post. I just had a couple of little things that I jotted down, but I think we kind of went over it. And again, you can take a look at my slides. So let's get to know InDesign a little bit. I've got some screenshots here. Now, this is what it's going to look like when you make a blank, just 8.5 by 11 document. There's a couple of different displays, I guess you would say. I tend to work out of the essentials display just because I'm not gonna lie, number one, it defaults to essentials for almost everybody that I've seen. But number two, it seems to have all of the options that I need somewhat up on the screen. I do tend to have to go into the window and open up a couple more tabs sometimes, but it ends up being set up kind of the best way that I use InDesign. Each time that Adobe updates something, they seem to take away features that I liked or add features that I will probably never use. So they're set up for their their layout of the screen used to be a little bit different, and I found it to be very user-friendly, and this new thing kind of pops the tabs out, and then when you try to click off, it ends up like closing them up for you. It doesn't leave them open unless if you manually drag them out, and then you have all of these panels everywhere. And it used to keep kind of like an area over here where you could just kind of keep all of your tabs open, and then you still had your full screen over here. And I just found this was probably 3 versions ago, and I found it so easy, and I've done nothing but complain since I got rid of that. So if you see me working in it and complaining, just know it's me. Sometimes I get I've been using this program for so long that I kind of got set in my ways, and it was maybe after 10 years that they changed it. And, it's been hard for me. So kind of feel for me a little bit. All right, so let's go over some of the InDesign tools and their functions. And you'll notice that I have some of these tools with a gray box behind them, and some of them should have a gray box. I just happen to have not put a gray box. Like I said, I have been using InDesign since InDesign's inception, and there are some tools that, quite frankly, I've just never had a need to use, and there's a good chance that you will probably never have a need to use it. But I'm gonna show you them anyways, and we'll go over them anyhow. So some of the biggest tools that you are definitely going to use is the black mouse item select tool. That's how you select certain things on the page and kind of drag them around, just like your pointer that you have on a website, what have you. And then the white mouse, which is your direct select tool. If you have taken the Illustrator class, you may recall that you have a white mouse in there, and it's kind of similar the way it works. What the white mouse does is it can actually select things that are inside of those frames we keep talking about, those rectangular frames or, circle frames, maybe even a frame that you just drew with the pen tool. You use it to select what you have placed inside. Think of those frames as Tupperware containers, and images that you place in there are kind of things that you would put inside of your Tupperware containers. And so what the white mouse tool allows you to do is kind of take the top off of that Tupperware container and root around in there and select what's inside. And the black mouse tool is the equivalent to you stacking all of your containers with the top on. You can move them around, but you can't really get into what's inside the container. I use that analogy for a lot of things. If you're in InDesign with me, if you take a Dreamweaver course with me, I seem to use Tupperware analogies. But hey, you can get a visual of what it does. All right, next we have the page tool, which I never use, which allows you to resize one page in a spread. So a spread is 2 pages side by side, and I feel as though if the pages are not the same size, they probably shouldn't be set up as a spread, but that's just me. Apparently, the Adobe engineers thought that they should be. That's why I have never used that before. Then you have the gap tool, which you can use to adjust the white space in between and around page items. So I am a visual person. I visually do that myself, but Adobe decided to help you guys out, and they gave you a tool to do it for you. Then you have the content collector tool, which allows you to grab multiple pieces of content and repurpose it. I have never used that tool. It just seems silly. But again, something that somebody at one point thought would be cool, and so they made it. Then here's another tool you will definitely use probably every single time that you are in InDesign, and that is your type tool. So when you took Photoshop and when you took Illustrator, if you took Illustrator, you had a type tool in both of those programs, and you could just, hit the type tool, hit the page, with the type tool and just start typing. It doesn't work that way in InDesign. What you need to do is you need to manually draw a text box with the type tool and then start to type in your text boxes. You can't just free type in InDesign. It makes you keep that type, again, in a container, in a Tupperware container, nice and neat. So you don't have type just running off the page. You would actually have to have a text box running off the page. Then we have a line tool, which is literally used to create a line. Kind of easy to remember. You have a pen tool. What the pen tool does, and again, going back to Illustrator, but that's where these tools came from originally. You have to think of what programs came first in the Adobe family tree. And Photoshop and Illustrator came before many, many years, many moons before InDesign. So a lot of the tools that are in InDesign are repurposed for InDesign, but they were originally used in other Adobe programs. So the pen tool lets you draw straight and curved paths within InDesign. You may, using the pen tool is definitely a tool you need to work at to understand, the different nuances of that tool. It takes a lot of work, I would say. Then there is a pencil tool. I have probably only used this tool once or twice, which is why I don't have a gray box behind it, but it lets you draw with your mouse as though it were a pencil. I just don't really, thinking about what program is the correct tool for the job. And I just, in my mind, InDesign might not be the correct program for that. I would probably use Photoshop or Illustrator to do something like that. But again, I have used it. Then we have the elusive rectangle frame tools and rectangle tools. So the rectangle frame tool, which is this one that shows a box, an X in the middle, that's used to put a picture in your document. So what that X symbolizes is that the rectangle is empty, meaning you're going to draw an empty rectangle, which you will then place something inside of, like a picture. Then you have the rectangle tool, which is not empty. It kind of looks a little bit like a gradient in there. What that means is you are going to simply draw a rectangle. And if you see an arrow at the bottom of the tool panel, what that means is the main tool is being shown, but if you click on the arrow, it will pop out and show you other hidden tools that relate, kind of go along with that tool. Next, we have the scissor tool, which puts a split in a path, so you would cut your path that you drew with your pen. And I don't really use it. There's other ways to do it, but that's what it does. Then you have the free transform tool, which provides a way to perform any transformation, such as scaling something, skewing something, things of that nature with just that one tool. Then we have the gradient tool, so you can add a gradient to your rectangle or your ellipsis or whatever shape that you drew. Pretty self-explanatory. This one is new, and it's probably one of my favorite new InDesign tools. I say it's new, it's probably been around for like 6 updates, but again, when you've been using the program for as long as I have, anything that's like after 2008 seems new. I'm like, this is totally new, and people are like, Shannon, it's been around for 10 years. But I think it's so awesome. It's called the Gradient Feather Tool, and what it does is it lets you either soften the gradient that you created, but it also lets you feather pictures, which I find is really cool because you can, without having to go into Photoshop, which is what we used to have to do, and kind of blend two pictures into each other in Photoshop, you can now place two pictures in InDesign and do the same exact thing without having to alter your original picture. And for me, that is like one of the coolest things ever. So that tool makes me so happy. I love using that tool, and I'll show you an example of it tonight. Then another tool that deserves a gray box behind it, the note tool, it lets you just make yourself a note, which again, I mean, is kind of the equivalent of putting a sticky note. I guess if you're working on something really big and you need to go back to something, it would be great, but I just do things differently, but hey, some people like it. Then we have the eyedropper tool, which yours might default to this eyedropper that shows 3 boxes, which is the color theme tool, and it allows you to pick multiple colors from one image. It's a little bit confusing the first couple of times that you use it, kind of understanding it. So you might want to change yours to default just to that regular eyedropper tool, which means you select just one color at a time. For me, it's a lot easier to do it that way. I find that the color theme tool is a little bit, I don't know, it was a little bit confusing for me. You might not find it confusing, but for me, it was a little bit confusing. Then we have the hand tool, which allows you to move your document around without zooming in or out. And one of the things that I want to tell you is you don't actually have to go down to the hand tool in InDesign. If you are on either pretty much any of the tools except in a text box, because if you hit this in a text box, it's just going to add it in. So let's say that I've kind of clicked off of my design and I press the space bar. That space bar immediately defaults me to the hand tool, and I can drag my page around. So I can look, what's going on over here, drag my page over here if I'm really zoomed in. So that way I can just kind of zoom around on my page to do what it is that I need to do. Again, if you're in a text box and you hit the space key, it's going to just add in spaces. Then we have the magnifying glass, which is your zoom tool, which again allows you to zoom in or out of the page. And then down here at the bottom, and you might have noticed there's little subtle kind of indents in the tool box. It kind of just puts certain things that have something to do with each other into sections. It kind of just does that. So this very last section is the fill and stroke. So those control the color of your shape, the first box with the big white background and the big red line going through it. That's going to be your fill color. Then this one, which shows a border with nothing inside, that is going to be your outline. And you'll notice down here that there's a default to nothing inside and a black border. And I believe it is your rectangle frame tool. It's one of them. I have turned that off in my preferences, but one of them defaults to having a black border. So I just want to point that out for you, because if you don't notice that and you don't want absolutely everything you put on your screen to have a black border, you need to manually turn that off. And I don't know why Adobe does some of the things that they do. And then down here, you can turn the grid on and off, and then the same can be accomplished by pressing the W key. And you can also go to your different views, which is, normal, preview, and then there's a couple of other views that you can get to right through that panel. And then we have some of our windows that we can open up. So we have the CC library, which is pretty cool. You can use Adobe Color, which is an online program, which means that you don't download it from the Creative Suite. You have to navigate to it through your browser, and you can actually make and save color themes, and they will show up in all of your Adobe programs. under whatever you named your library, basically, and you can then add those to your swatches. So I think Adobe Color is seriously cool. That was one of the best things that Adobe came up with. Then you have the swatches panel, which are all of your colors, and it just defaults to maybe 7 or 8 default colors, but you can make any range of colors and save them in your swatches. And you can also save and import swatch libraries. I remember at my last job, I had swatch libraries with hundreds and hundreds of colors, and they all had specific names, and I would go into them, and every job that I was in, I set up my entire InDesign. Whenever they gave me a new computer, or they had to wipe something clean on my computer, and the first thing I would do is load in all of my swatches, load in all of my libraries, and I'd be like, all right, now I'm good to go. Because it's all about automation, you know, kind of, if you find that you're doing the same thing over and over again, automate your own system. Then you have stroke, which is, again, you know, with using your line tool, using your pen tool, putting a border on something. The stroke is, you know, that border, how much weight. So you can go up or down, you know, from 0 to whatever number for how bold you want that border to be. Your cap on the edges can be rounded. It can be a square where the end is right at the end. You would have to kind of go through these settings and zoom in to be able to see the differences, but there are some subtle differences. The same thing with how the joints are and where the stroke is aligned. It defaults to align at the center. So if you put a border around the entire edge of your margin, let's say, it's going to start to run outside of your margin because it's going to start at the center and move in and move out. I can kind of show you that. It's really interesting, but if you need to be aware of like where something's going to be cut, it's really good to know where things are aligned. It really does end up being important. You can change what type of line. You can change the start and the end. So if you need something to be an arrow, you can start it at the arrowhead or what have you, or end it at the arrowhead. There's a couple of different options in there. If you are doing a double line with a space in between, you can put a color in that gap area. You can even tint it. Then you have your gradient, which again adjusts those gradient colors and the different types of gradients that are offered. Then you have your type tool. So again, like I was telling you that you need to draw those text boxes. This is an example of what a text box looks like on your screen. So you can go into the character panel, change out your fonts. You can change the font size, the leading. You can change the kerning. You can change, but you shouldn't, the horizontal and vertical. Please leave those at 100. Fonts are designed a certain way, and they should stay that way. You know, when you start to skew things, they don't look correct. So please leave those at 100. You can, you know, if you want to do something, let's say like 50% and do that percent small and up in the corner, this would be what you would use to do that. You would bump down your font size and then move it up just like that. If you want to give something a tilt, again, if there isn't an italic version, you should probably change a font to a font that has an italic version. So this is the character panel that you can open up from the side. And then up at the top of the screen, while you are in the text box, you will have these options that will show up at the top of the screen, which gives you some character options, some paragraph options, right at your fingertips, which is great. So you don't have to go into all of the different panels. And again, another explanation of the different tools and what they do. And like I said, I'm going to share my slides with you. So this slide and a couple of these slides might come in handy when you're doing that quiz this week. Just a little hint. All right, so again, that quiz is based off of this week's live session, the readings and the videos. There's a total of 11 questions, and you have unlimited time to take that quiz. Be very careful and read those questions over before you answer them. And those are the objectives which we already went over. All right, so for our assignment this week, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pause our recording right now, and I'm going to start up a new recording, not only for everybody who is watching at home on YouTube right now, but also for everybody who is here live. I think it'll be easier if you can go, you know, for those of you who are here live, if you want to go back in and kind of work along with me, you can just reference just the second video. And for those of you who are watching at home, what you will do next is just go on to the next video, the next link. All right, so I'm going to pause it and we'll start up our next recording.